But just before we discuss that further, just the service models that you need to map your data to, from, I suppose, a delivery point of view as well, is first of all take into consideration the data center itself, where the cloud platform is residing. Take into consideration as well the infrastructure as a service platform, if that's what you're about to use. Also, the platform as a service, if you're embarking on platform as a service, and then there's software as a service as well, which is basically one of the lower layers. And I have another analogy there of the Russian dolls, because a lot of the time when you are embarking on one of these service models, they actually do encompass another service model above in the tier above. So that's something you must consider. So just a quick reminder of the airline industry and what I spoke about there in terms of the risk assessment that we take on a daily basis, but we may not even think too much about it. It's almost automatic we do that. We can compare the data center, for instance, to the airline industry. And from that point of view, you look at a data center, and the first thing you do is you possibly do a risk assessment based on the reputation of that data center. And I encourage people to look at, first of all, these are coming from my own personal experiences, where some things, over the years with using cloud technology, some things from my perspective have gone wrong, and I'd like to share some of these with you guys, and hopefully you can benefit from my experience. Always take into consideration, from the data center point of view, the access control and the shared areas in the data center. The other thing to consider is, from shared areas point of view, okay, one thing is people getting access to your equipment, but often what can happen is somebody may just pull a cable belong to you, and you may not get that cable replaced for a couple of hours until you find out exactly what happened. And a couple of hours of downtime for something simple over pulling a cable can be quite costly. So also look at resources from the data center, and consider things such as network bursting. If for instance you are sharing a network with other providers, what happens when you need to burst or they need to burst? Is it a case that performance will be degraded on your side if for instance one of the other clients burst on the network? Also, the location of the data center as well. So if you have sensitive information and you're hosting it in the European data center, from that point of view, from a data protection law point of view, you don't want that data to leave Europe. So ask those questions. Physical and environmental security obviously is quite important as well. It's every data center should have extremely good physical and environmental security. And how you can check on those, you can obviously do your own audit and go there and walk around the data center. But if it's not possible to do the audit, you may look at compliance standards such as ISO 27001 and PCI, for instance. I find a very good question as well to ask a data center to find out if there has been any outages, for instance, in the last 6 months, and what the acceptable risk tolerance is in these outages. But most importantly as well, because a lot of cloud providers do have outages, and I think they should be transparent about those outages. What you should ask is, okay, if you did have an outage, how did you actually deal with it, and what was your process for dealing with that and informing the user base, etc. Was there a particular formal procedure involved where people actually got told about the outage, and was the data center seamless about that? So I think that's one of the most important things to consider. So then as we go down to look at the cloud layers, the infrastructure as a service layer, for instance, you should look at things like multi-tenancy and who are you actually sharing the platform with. And also from a virtualization point of view, is there anything that can happen within the operating system that may affect the other users of that virtualization? Is there any way from a security point of view that things can be breached through the operating system? Also on infrastructure as a service, a lot of providers provide replicas of data, and from a disaster recovery point of view may have multiple replicas of information. A question to ask is who has access to those replicas? Where do they go? Are they encrypted? If they are encrypted, what level of encryption? In infrastructure as a service, another important point is to look at the capacity and the plan for growth. Although this talk is about information security, what you're looking at is a part of information security is also availability. So I mean, if you're growing and you don't have that capacity going forward, it could affect your availability.